Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So Mr. Bunny or hare or rabbit, he's a hare. I thought this would be the video that would be he's finished and you'd be seeing the end product. But no, I just wanted to come and do another video because I'm working on his legs. And there was a few things that I learnt and I figured might save you guys a little bit of time. So he has his body completely done and I have stitched on the decorative piece here, which then sets the tones for his legs. Now in the video previous, for some reason I thought his legs went on the side of him with some buttons, but they don't. It's not a kangaroo, it's a hare, which then I realized that I'd actually stitched the top of these wrong. So I've had to unpick them because what I had done is stitched them that way, which made sense that they would go on the side of his body. Now I have seen some photos on the Facebook site where that has been done, but then the majority of photos and the pattern, the legs are in the front. So I had to unpick this, reattach it, so that I could do, let me just zoom up a little bit here so you can see, so that I could attach them like that. Now they are below his nose, straight down his body, like so. Then the base of them just touches the ground and it sort of provides that support so that he doesn't topple. Now, the next thing was how to attach it, and that's why this video has come along. So I had to be a bit tricky and work it in with my embroidered piece because the whole time I was thinking they were going on the side. I don't even know where I got that from. I must have seen some of them done and that just stuck in my mind, but technically the correct way to do them according to Lindsay's pattern is across, Lesley's pattern is across the front. So I just wanted to do this video to show you some little techniques I come up with to do it, because you want that leg to be integrated and working into the body, but it also needs to be secure. So that stitching there is helping, but there's more stitches involved. So what I want to do is show you some of the little things I did. Now I still haven't done his hind legs, so I'm thinking they'll be reasonably simple. I don't think there'll be too much there that stumps me up. If I think there's a video in it, I'll come back and show you anything that sort of, you know, I did stumble across there. But anyway, so this little guy has an embroidered piece on it as well. So I did a little stitchery and topped it there. Underneath is pretty much fabric, but I did probably leave a little bit of a gap because it wasn't worth wasting that fabric. So the cladding side of it, adding all the pieces, was pretty simple, but it just was a bit tricky around the top and it was a bit tricky around the toes. So that's what I want to do on the video today. So I've got my box of tricks. I literally picked it up from the side of my couch where I've been working out of it. So it really does need a bit of a tidy up. They're the pieces that I've got left that could be embroidered. So let's put them to one side. The cottons to a side. I do want to work a little bit more of this crocheted lace. I put him a little line of lace here, but when I'm finished, I'll come back and probably add some to his leg as well. I'll just sort of scoot around the whole rabbit, adding, you know, some additional lace in there just to sort of dress him up a little bit. But that's just come off of a doily. Now, let's get him out of the way. Now, the first thing I found I needed to do was create a wrap that went across the top here and extended past the actual leg just a little bit. That gave that little bit of fabric there to sort of help him pivot. Now, you don't have to do that, but I just sort of felt like it worked for me. Now, I need a piece of decorative fabric. Where's my big scissors? So I'm going to attempt to just do a little bit of work on him. Now I wrapped it around the back. I'll show you what I mean when I just trim this out. Now there won't be a piece of embroidery on this leg. I sort of feel like I've got enough of those types of elements at this stage, unless I get to the end and go, no, more embroidery needed. So the aim is just to cut a rectangle a little bit bigger than what I need. Now where's all my pins? It's like a pinning nightmare, this hair. So that is just there to secure that to there like that. Okay, so they will fold in, so you can finger press that a little bit. Just sort of felt like it gave a little bit extra strength to the piece and gave you that nice top that blends into the body. Now you could have fabric coming from the top, the torso, down over this if you wanted. I might end up going and doing a patch there, but in my scenario I probably won't be able to because I've got this embroidery meeting the top of his leg. So that will sit there. If I didn't have the embroidery, I could certainly do a patch there that would blend it. So I sort of had to think a little bit about how I was going to attach it. Now what I'm going to do now is some invisible stitch, just with a needle and thread, securing that piece of fabric on. So let's do that first. And I apply a similar idea to the toe. That was a bit of a trick. You need to probably snip the fabric pieces a little to ease them around bends. And the other thing I found was there's a couple little darts that you need to do. Now this will have another piece of fabric come across the back here, so I'm not worried that my knot is going to be seen. All I want to do at this stage is secure all this fabric down and together. So I'm going to come right through to the other side, but do some little stitches this side, the front, and bigger stitches at the back. So I know that that's not going to go anywhere. And I do the same thing when I attach it actually to him, just with the thin needle and thread. I stitch him on. That way I know he is on, and you just don't notice all of those little stitches. So that's the trick or the advice that I wanted to give you. If you're wondering how your little leg actually attaches, you're going to need to do not only your decorative overcast stitch with your big feature cotton. Get your needle and thread out and just do some anchoring stitches just to help that. It's probably more if you're going to give your hair to some little people to play with, you probably want to know that they're not going to be able to pull a leg off. You'll be forever repairing him. Now, of course, you can take a patch from his leg up onto his torso. That would certainly help. So that's all I'm going to do there for now. I'm not going to run anything along there because I believe there'll be patches of fabric come there anyway. So that's one side secure. I just couldn't decide if this was worth a video or not, and then I thought, no, well, I feel like I've figured things out here. I might as well turn the camera on because you'll be all figuring the same sort of thing out, how you're going to attach those front legs. The hind legs should be easy because you're not merging them into anything. You're pretty much using a button to secure them. or just some well-placed threads, stitches. So tiny little stitch on the front so no one knows you've been there, but you can scoot around on the back. It's the classic invisible stitch we all use. For those who are new, we use this stitch a lot when we're trying to put little decorative elements down onto a background before we get our, real stitches going. This is like tacking it down first. It eliminates a lot of pins too. You could probably tack the whole hare. You may be already doing that because, boy, don't the pins get out there in your way, especially if you scoot ahead and patchwork a heap of fabric into position and you want those pins gone. Well, then you may be doing this exact process just to hold things down. There we go. So that's the first step to making the top of that leg look like it's got some plan. Now, you don't technically see the back here, but you sort of do, especially if someone flips it up. You're going to see it. So what I did in that scenario, and I'll just flip his little leg up and bring him into the camera, I put a little patch of fabric here. It just tidied him up on the back, and if anyone did flip him, they didn't really see any of the tricks to the trade. So I'm just going to grab another scrap and just by eye measure that out. I might even take it further down the leg, can't hurt, like so. You could be precise and measure it, which I probably should do, but that to me will be close. Let me just square that up a little and put a finger crease there. And once I trim it, I can always trim it again. Let's see how that is. So you want it to cover our space. Just going to trim that in a little bit. Pop a few pins. And the same thing, I'll invisible stitch that down so it's not going anywhere, and then I can do a decorative stitch on this side. Probably need to trim a little more off than that. Need to come in at a bit of an angle because I've brought his leg in at a bit of an angle. It really is trial and error. And that's the great thing about him, is he's meant to look scrappy. So the scrappier you are, the better it is. There's a lot of forgiveness in this little pattern. Okay, let's just neaten that up. That will get a secondary trim once he's attached, because I found that the fabric creeped up a little bit. So I ended up just coming along and cutting it clean again, and then stitching him onto the hare's body. So I'm just going to grab thread again. So that's how I prepared the top of his leg. The rest was pretty simple. It's just patches as you work down. But I just want to catch a bit of this first. Then I will get the decorative stitch out and do a little bit of leg stitching there. But it won't hurt to have a few of these little stitches in there. It's sort of a pressure point on the hair. So like every toy you make around those legs and arms, you sort of want a little bit of strength. Oh, I cannot believe how many hours has gone into this piece. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know, but goodness me. I think in the one evening I did one leg. It seemed the body was quicker than the legs. It must be because we're working in a smaller space. So I don't want that stitch to show through. I might leave it at that. Not that anyone's going to see it behind there, but, you know, if they do flip a leg up, there's always someone, isn't there, to go, oh, how'd you do that? And they flip the leg up and you're like, oh, well, now you know. Everything's exposed. Got to have a little bit of mystery. All right, so let's get this with a few little stitches. You don't have to do this. I don't know. It's up to you. But I really feel like it's given it a little bit of strength around there. Okay, so now we're just going to scoot down this outer edge with some tiny little stitches. Nothing coming through. Now we're into the actual leg itself, so I can stitch down into that wadding. And now I know that that piece is really secure. Hello, Fudgy. I've been filming videos all morning, so he's been in a couple times and said hello. He must be requiring brunch. Hey, pussycat. Just bellowing around the place. No, he's needing me to stop what I'm doing, go into the lounge room so he can get on my lap. That's what that's about. He's demanding attention. Hello, pussycat. Off you go. Okay, so the top now has that piece. See how that crept up a little bit? All you can do there, or you easily done, is just give it a little trim. So when you stitch that on, it'll sit nicely. Now, I won't do it now because I need to work more on the leg, but I'm just going to bring it back into shot. My next step, let's say this leg's completely finished and is ready to attach. What I do next is grab some pins and pin it in. That way you can check that the foot is touching the ground because you want them to be level. Then I get the invisible thread scenario and I get in there and I stitched 3 or 4 rows across so that it is not going anywhere. Then I came back with the big cotton, decorative cotton, and did the overcast stitch along that edge to really make it look like that is holding it, but it's not actually. There's actually more stitches in there. So it felt really secure. So that's what I wanted to show you. Now, the other thing, which is really fiddly, but it does come together when you start working your piece, I'm going to show you what I did with the foot, but I need to have some patches sort of down there in order to do it. So I'm going to put that patch there. Actually, I didn't go all the way down. Just going to put that patch there because I can then see that little flower. Fudgy. Then you need a fairly big piece. So just for demonstration, I'm just going to start working my way around the foot. Oh, pussycat, don't jump up. Oh, goodness me. He really wanted my attention, didn't he? So I'm just pinning this big piece. I can always come through with a little patchy piece at the heel, but that's the start of it. Now, the trick is to get yourself over the toe with least amount of fabric and folds. So that's how I did it. I just sort of created a bit of a tuck. Then pin it. Just take your time and pin it. One there. You can always adjust it and fiddle with it. So that's got us the top of the foot over the toe, and now we've got all this bulk fabric. So what I'm going to do then is just cut into there to start layering down that toe. Now you could get rid of a lot more fabric there once you get that eased around. You might find another way that you found that you could do it, but it is a tricky surface to get around. So I felt like there was a few little pleats needed. You could probably cut your fabric down a lot in size, therefore you've got less big pieces in your way. So I just sort of kept working around and adjusting, and it just seemed to come together in the end. I'm going to cut that piece off. That's excess to requirements. Then it's just a case of nibbling in there, taking bulk out as you go. So now I can cut that out because it's just not needed. It is fiddly. That's why I thought I might just put the camera on, because for the beginners out there, this would be probably a bit of a daunting. It's a challenge because you've got a lot of curves happening here, and you don't want too much fabric bulk. So I'm going to now, you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, but you'll work it out as you sort of come through with your pins. I'm going to cut that pleat as well, so that that goes there. Hey fudgy. And that piece of fabric from behind. Maybe there's an easier way to do this than what I'm doing, but it worked, and I got rid of a lot of the bulk and was able to get quite a nice finish to my little foot. And anything that looks a bit crazy, you've always got the option of bringing a little piece of fabric up and over to make it look neat. There we go, that's better. So I've got rid of a lot of bulk out of that. Could probably still get some more out of that little pleat there, but I think I'm going to leave that. That feels quite flat and tight, and that'll stitch down with another patch coming across this side, so that's good. Just take your time. There's no right way to do it because he is a scrappy rabbit, but when you feel like the side is feeling reasonably flat through there, because you've got like quite a lot of fabric bending around this corner, you then can grab a patch, and if anything looks a little bit crazy, you can cover it with another patch, like so. You can just bend that. That fabric's not doing much for me in the way of beauty. but I'll pin it there for now. But I'd say I will replace that because I think there's probably nicer fabrics there. But it just shows you that you can certainly come through with other patches to help your pleats disappear. So now I've got this side, so I'm just going to tuck that in like that. That's pretty good. I'm going to pin it so we know it stays. And then we're on the back of the heel. So maybe there's an opportunity to bring a piece around there. I'm wondering, I'm going to bring this piece around because it's, you know, not my favourite. So I might as well use it where it's not as visible. And come around this way. That'll hold that little pleat down. Now, if you did the rabbit the way that Susanna did hers, you won't have this issue because you patched your pieces flat. Does that make sense? So you're in a side seam, so you don't have this manipulating you need to do to get around some corners. Now I'm wanting a piece to patch through there. I need something that's a little bit different in colour. I need to dig deeper. I'm going for the same sorts of tones. I might do that one. Can you hear that cat? What is Fudgy's problem? I can usually get 2 videos done in a morning. After that, he's starting to get a bit lippy. He's like, what are you doing? We could be walking around the garden. We could be doing some housework. You know, he's like my little taskmaster. Yes, Fudge, I'm talking about you. So I'm going to bring this piece in here, like so. Flowers upside down, so let's do it this way. That will just finish the heel. It'll come over here and catch all of that pleating. I just hope I have not left a pin in, because it'd be highly likely with the amount of pins we're using in this little rascal. That feels good there. Now technically I would have come from the top down, so I will probably end up unpinning a bit of this too. There's a pucker here, so I'm either going to need to put a little snip to get that to lie flat, or just put a little dart and then bring another patch across, which would cover all of that, and that would all sit down. So does that make sense? It's really is just a case of working around your toe the best you can, take out any bulk you can, patching as you go, and then when you come back with your needle and thread, you could do some invisible stitches through there, which I think I will, just for extra support, and then you can work on your decorative stitches, but you know at least it's all being held with some stitches, because I can sort of imagine a small child pulling at the end of that foot, and the last thing you want is all of this to become unraveled. So I'm just going to follow those pleats and just pop a few little stitches in. I'd rather do it now than having to come back and repair Mr. Rabbit after he's had a explosion of the toes. And like I said earlier in the video, if you're someone that cannot handle having all those pins around, you may be doing this anyway just to get a bit of law and order with your fabric. then you can come back and just focus on your stitches. So now I can remove that pin altogether. Especially if you're doing some embroidery straight onto your rabbit, especially if you say you're using plain fabrics and you haven't embroidered prior, you may be wanting to do this sort of work to get rid of all those pins, and then you can bring out your fabric pen, sketch in a few little designs or messages or words, and then you can stitch away without getting jabbed. So this come together a lot quicker than the one I did last night, the other foot, because I was going round and round and round, and I probably used more fabric than I needed to because I was sort of finding my way around him, if that makes sense. There we go. So I'm going to say the last video will be next week and he will be completed, unless I find something in that construction process of the hind legs that just makes me feel like I need to turn the camera on and give you a bit of a hot tip. Who would have thought something so small like these little legs could be so troublesome? Well, they're not, but it's fiddly. Now I'm just putting a few little stitches at the top of that little pleat. I don't know, that's secure. Now, as you know, I'm working on a second rabbit. Well, I've done his ears and I've made his body. Well, I've decided to gift that rabbit in his started process to a friend. She spotted my red rabbit. She fell in love with red rabbit. And I said, oh gosh, I've got two of these. It's not a rabbit, it's a hare. She fell in love with hare, and she's got basic sewing skills, but not, you know, not full on. And she was a bit hesitant of getting the pattern and going for it. And I said, look, how about I gift you the second rabbit? So it's a hare. I'm sure you're all laughing, going, geez, Corrine, got rabbits on the brain. It's a hare. So I said to her I would work the face here. I'll get that stitched down. I'll embroider the lips because that's pretty tricky. She's not going to do any additional embroidery, but I've got enough lace to give her some bits and pieces that she can lace him up. And I've cut out that second eye, so I've just got to make it up in its final, you know, form, and then she can just stitch it on when she's got her cladding on. So yeah, that's the plan. The second hare I'm actually not going to complete. It's become a gift, which I'm sort of quietly pleased that rabbit, the hare, has left the building. I feel like this little pucker here needs a little snip. And then I can bring some fabric up the leg there a little bit. So I'm just going to do that. So you will probably not see that fellow completed, because who knows what she'll do with him. So I know she has a pretty extensive doily collection. So my guess is she might dip into those that she's inherited. So stay tuned. Maybe one day I'll get my hands back on the hare, the second hare, and be able to show him finished. But yeah, unfortunately, guys, you're not going to see that rabbit hare anymore. Gosh, why can't I get the name of the creature right? Okay, how are we going for time? Oh, we got plenty of time. let's just get this little guy's leg done. I need some fabric. Where's some good scraps? That's not a bad little scrap. I might bring that across the side of the foot. It'll freshen that up a little. It's very dark, that particular colour. So I'm just going to pin it. What else do we have? Some of these fabrics I just haven't cut into, so I'm trying my darndest now, being that we're close to the finish line, not to cut into them. Having said that, I'm about to cut into this one. Because I like it. I might just tip that into there and see how that looks. Yep. Gosh, no hair will ever be the same as another hair. They are so different to each other. That fabric is very similar to that fabric. So I'm going to cut that back. And I need to bring a different pattern up through there just to neaten it up. This guy might be a good one. Completely different colour. Yeah. And then I can bring another one up from there. Take that pin out. Take that out. There's a pin in underneath there. Goodness me. Gosh, I hope you just don't end up giving this to someone and then as they give it a hug, a pin jabs them. I'm going to have to give it a good hug myself just to double check. Not that this little guy's going anywhere. I'm going to keep him. He's going to sit in my craft room and look at me. So that little patch finishes that. That finishes that. So now we're on our way up this leg. And I think I need a bit of a patch going through there to break it up a little. Some different fabric colours. It's a bit matchy-matchy. Look, I'm overthinking it. Now's not the time to start thinking about patches on rabbits. It's just been a free-for-all here. I could get rid of all of the fabric that I haven't cut into. And maybe I won't bore you with the whole process, but I think it'll give you a bit of a idea of how to tackle the foot. Yeah, that's better. There we go, that should all stitch down nicely. Where is it? I know my fingers are quite sore from getting in there. I can't imagine how you guys are going when you're using the embroidery, upholstery fabrics, you know, thicker pieces. Oh boy. It's sort of why I chose these softer fabrics, because I do a lot of embroidery and the last thing I want to do is hurt my hands. So I thought, oh, I'll do myself a favour and just pick the quilt fabric. Plus I love this fabric, this French General, and when those embroidery panels came out I was like, oh, Susanna, we just have to So that's very matchy-matchy, but I do love that piece. Where can we put it? No, we can't. I think I need this pop of red over here. Covering my rose. Actually, I might do that line because I could put some lace along that line. I'll show you what I mean. Don't mind the odd straight line, because that then allows you to add some crocheted lace. And that'll be the outer edge of his foot, so that is a definite going to happen. So just going to trim this back a little bit more. I'm going to put that there. So I'll just pin it. Can come down the outside of his foot. So once again, I'd invisible stitch that on. And in the process, that then I wouldn't need to do the big decorative stitch along there as well, because I've already, this will hold it. If anything, it probably will hold it better. By the time I finish, there'll be hundreds of little stitches up this side. I might finish it there. I definitely want to add more decoration to his body. I might pin that actually, because I need a piece of fabric to come through. Can I get as high as I tuck that into there? Scoot that through. That over there. That looks good. It's popping on that pink fabric. That can come up there. That'll look good. And that can come over the back. So that's covered that edge nicely. Okay, we're getting there. Let's see, can I get this in? No. I need a piece there, but I need a piece there first. Let's have another look. No. Oh, I haven't used a piece of this yet. It's a little bit matchy to that, isn't it? Does that matter? Maybe I could put one of these on. I'm going off on a tangent now. I wonder, it sort of might be too big. Let's just muck around with it, see what happens. What if that went there on the front of his leg? What if I trimmed it down a little bit? Let's do it. Let's get rid of some of its size, because it nearly feels a bit big for his leg. Hello, Casper. Now we've got another cat in here. Now that that border's gone, I can patch that in there. Oh yeah, I love it. It's sort of a bit more in proportion, if that makes sense. I can do some decorative stitching around it. I'll give his little leg a little bit of interest. The other one has a piece of embroidery on it. See, I just had a feeling I didn't need to do any more embroidery. There is a piece of artwork on his tummy to the side. So that sort of carries the story a little bit. I wonder if this can now come in. Yes, it can. Let's tuck that under there. Pull it out just a fraction so we can see that blue flower there. It is on the inside of his leg, so I'm probably overthinking the location of the piece, but yeah, I like that. Yep. I knew I'd find a spot for it. So that, with a little bit of stitching, if that's a problem there, you just create a patch. And that'll help reinforce any little areas that just feel like they're not quite covering. I might just tilt that way, I think. Doesn't quite make this guy, but it will make that guy. There we go. One leg. Let's get rid of all our mess. Keep the reasonable size pieces. Now let's assume that that's all stitched. Let's get that out of the way and bring our rabbit in, hare in. Goodness. And that will sit there and be stitched down. And that is his second foot in position. There you go, guys. I hope that was of help to you. I just felt like that needed a bit of thought and that was tricky, but I think that will work beautifully. So now I can just stitch him and stitch it on. As for the leg, I don't think he'll be too hard, the hind leg. I was planning on doing some embroidery on the hip of the leg. I've got these pieces, but I'm not sure. I'm thinking I won't, because I want to put a button. I want to bring that in tight and pucker it, and to have that beautiful piece of embroidery there, it's just not going to do it for me. I'm going to save those pieces for a rainy day. I think I've got enough little elements on him, and I'm still got, you know, plenty of this lace left, where once he's got his final legs on, I'll have a good look over his body and see where I can bring some other little bits and pieces in, just to add a little bit more texture to him. I added a piece, let me flip him over. I added a piece here under this little piece of script. So I do want to play a little bit more. I've got that piece peeking out there from beside the leg. So yeah, and I do have a bit of it left. So that will be, I think, the final embellishing. So there you go. I will leave it at that, and I'll pop back next week with him finished. Hopefully he's finished, and maybe I'll have an update on the other Scrappy Rabbit. Maybe my mate has had a little bit of a play with him, so we'll see. All right, guys, look after yourselves, have a lovely day, and bye for now. See you later. He's just going to have a quick look at everyone. Oh, isn't he just cute? All right, guys, bye.